welcome back to another episode of Buffalo Happy Hour. Mike, what's going on?
Derek, we're sharing a mic.
We sure are.
I'm excited. But we are in lovely East Aurora yet again. So let's start with introductions so that way our audience knows who we're talking to. And then we'll dive right into history and all fun things you guys.
Well, I'll start by saying, first of all, you're in our 42 below barrel room. So nice, cozy spot for us to do this today. John Simperman, and I'm the founder of the brewery, which means I'm the one who's, cleaning up the messes and, maintenance and whatever else and hiring good people. So with that, I'll let these guys introduce themselves.
Sure, yeah. Let's start with Matt over here.
Matt Natashevsky, I'm the head brewer of 42 North, so any beers go through me, and if there's any problems, I guess that's my fault.
You get the credit too now and then.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get the cheers and the jeers.
There you go. My name is Fred Marshall. I run the tap room, so basically the front of house. So he makes the liquid and I sell it.
Love that. Great dynamic.
And what's great is these guys have both been with us actually before we even opened our doors. So proud to have some tenure and some legacy with our employees.
Yeah, so when did 42 North open?
October 22nd, 2015.
Okay.
So I don't want to date the podcast too much, but we're about to approach our 7th anniversary.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome. So back then, what was the thought process before you even started? Like, was this always a passion of you to start a brewery at some point?
Yeah, it was for me, and it took me, 30 years to convince my wife it was a good idea. I grew up as a bad home brewer and trying to replicate Sierra Nevada's, recipes in my basement, and, always just loved, I love craft beer, but more importantly, I love the community that surrounds craft beer. Whenever I traveled in my profession, I would always find the coolest people and the coolest places, usually hanging out at a brewery. So always figured East Aurora, being an arts and crafts town, right, with Fisher Price and others, was a great spot for it. And tick tock, nobody was opening a brewery in East Aurora. So actually. We converted what was my former marketing agency into a brewery, and it's been a great home for us.
So you converted okay.
Yeah, explain that.
Yeah, you have to go through that because normally when we talk to people, it's like I was doing this while I did my other job. Right. But if you converted your other job to your new job, you didn't really have that luxury. So what was that conversation?
Yeah, well, I don't want to get into all the details, but actually, I had a marketing agency. And ended up selling the marketing agency and following my passion. But the good news for us is we owned the building which housed the agency, which has really turned out to be a really good layout for what we do. Matt has hopefully enough space to work and to grow. But so I'm home brewer, marketing guy, and following the passion, which is craft beer for sure.
How did you guys get involved then? Like, how did the three of you meet?
So I have a mutual friend with Fred, and I was in insurance for like a decade, and kind of like the story you were saying, like I worked in insurance and I hated it. Every day of my life was the worst day of my life, and I was a home brewer, and that was fun, and I kept thinking about a pipe dream of being a professional brewer. And when my first son was born, my wife was like, you're miserable. So why don't you kind of put your money where your mouth is and try to do something with this? And ECC had started their brewing program. So I was like, well, how many home brewers walk into a place and say, I'm a home brewer, come and hire me? Not dissuading anybody from doing that. Like, please, come in if you're interested. But I joined the ECC program, and then through our mutual friend was like, hey man, I know you're trying to get into the industry. Fred's actually going to be, the taproom manager of this place in East Aurora. And he connected us, and, we came in for an interview and started off in the tap room and, made my way, down the line.
It was during the basically building a team in the beginning. So that's why John was talking about before we even opened is when Matt and I started. So we were putting together the team for 42 and, looking at resumes, somebody who's just started a brewing program, I knew he knew how to sling drinks. So honestly, you started in the tap room.
Yep.
before you wound up downstairs. So I lost a bartender in the brewery.
I did both.
Gained what would be our future head brewer. Yeah.
Did both for a little while. Have those 13-hour days, opening the brewery, closing down the bar. So it was, it was fun.
Just burning the candle at both ends.
Poor wife at home with the newborn child. So
all three ends.
Yeah, right. So when you're conceptualizing this brewery and you own this building, was there any ever reservation, because you are kind of off the beaten path from the main strip? Did you think maybe I should get another building on the main strip, or was that always the plan?
No, I mean, again, I think a really important thing for restaurant owners, brewery owners, I think a really big asset is when they own the real estate, because then you can invest in the future because you're going to be there. So no, actually, I think the building is perfect. We share a parking lot with Vidler's Five and Dime, right? So, we have 150 parking spots around the building. And we're not constrained as we would be if we were on Main Street. If inside the brewery we have 30, 40 foot ceilings, so we've got room up, we've got room out. So no, not at all. I think in hindsight, we got really lucky. The space lays out really nice for what we do.
Which, can you touch on how the fact that you have like a 42 North campus? Yeah.
And that's the other part of it is we can spread out here. So, we have, I think it's probably 11,000 square feet in the tap room in the brew house. We added another 6,000 square feet, which is our production area, canning area, packaging area. And then the Airbnbs upstairs, which are super cool. And then we're here across the street in the barrel room. So we've created this cool craft campus. And, the events that we host here in our backyard is really cool because we'll close the alley down and we'll have, folks mingling in all three buildings.
So this entire space was the marketing firm, that entire building, or did you have to build on for like the Airbnb itself?
So where the Airbnbs are and the packaging space is, that's a brand new building. So we built that in middle of 19 and
18 and 19.
18 and 19, and it was up and running.
Just in time for things that happened.
Yeah. So it worked out great. We got lucky. We got lucky that owner of what was a pretty decrepit apartment building, was willing to sell it. Part of our original vision wasn't to have that property. True. And if we didn't have that property, I don't know how we would have survived. We wouldn't be brewing as much beer or putting it in cans right now without that space. So we got lucky.
And how was because this is the village, obviously. So how was a town with all of this? Were they receptive to it? Were they happy?
First of all, I mean, Village of East Aurora is, people say what makes East Aurora so vibrant, and I do think part of it is the openness and pro-business mentality of the village, but also the rules they put in place.
Forever ago.
Yeah, I mean, so, there's, East Aurora doesn't have drive-throughs, but you can walk down Main Street with a beer. And, they've done a really good job of keeping, East Aurora, kind of the character in place. Mm-hmm. But for us, again, from the moment we concepted 42 North to the moment we opened was, close to 2 years, because we did have to work with the village to change zoning to make brewing an approved manufacturing.
We're considered light industrial, so that's where you run into some problems sometimes. Like you'll see the breweries pop up in, say, the first ward where the entire area is zoned for industrial, and then that's okay, whereas we're zoned for agriculture.
Right. But the village was supportive. We had to provide examples of other villages similar to East Aurora that had breweries, and they continue to be super supportive. So we had to jump through more hoops than probably some do, but it was worth it. It's worth it.
Sure.
Well worth it. And, we're so fortunate to be in East Aurora because we've got a really solid, kind of loyal walk-up customer base, as well as East Aurora has become this kind of staycation destination. And Fred can tell you on any given weekend, 3/4 of the customers have never been here before.
People from all over. Yeah.
It's almost annoying how many people come here on the weekends because they ruin it. We're just like, dude, like,
we like it.
well, you guys love it, but yeah, it's just like there's so much foot traffic. It's almost ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then everyone goes to Knox Farms with their dog, and then
Right.
everyone's seeing all the different parks, and you're just like, dude, just kind of like,
Right.
go back, man. Like
Right.
the whole town was formed by like a couple families on vacation.
Yeah.
And then they put in place all these amazing rules where it's just like, yeah, you can drink on the street, who cares? And then now you have so much foot traffic where it's just an insane amount of people.
Yeah.
And then all the
Yeah.
festivals too.
Yeah, and there's not an open.
It's lack thereof.
Yeah, well, there's not an open retail, any retail space on Main Street. Main Street's booked 100%.
I'm sorry, I thought you were saying the open container law.
Oh, yeah, it's the lack of
Yes,
open
yes.
container, right?
They don't say you
We
can
don't
drink,
tell
they just
people.
don't tell you you can.
Right.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you started this, and then you're a part of trying to build out the front, like the whole restaurant area.
So what they brought me on to do was build a team to build the experience. So the goal in that aspect was to find people that cared about beer first of all, and then the service aspect of things. So you're trying to meet people not necessarily that have 10 years of bar experience and a bunch of built-in bad habits, but sometimes train people that you recognize as you're perfect for this business. Let me teach you about beer and how to serve beer and how to deal with customers. And I think that's where we came up with our awesome team right now. We've always had a good team, still do, and I'm proud of that fact.
Yeah.
That's something that we've worked hard on to try to create an experience, and it shows in our reviews and everything online. People, there's like, hey, great service, thank you. Sometimes you go to a bar and there's one person back there chatting with their buddy in the corner, and like here when you walk in, we want you to be welcomed. Well,
And I think
sell
on
you the
that
food,
note,
sell you the beer.
craft beer can still be intimidating to a lot of people, especially Western New York.
For sure.
We are not Colorado. We're not Vermont. Hopefully someday we will have that adoption of craft beer. But, any given weekend, half the people in are kind of walking, looking around, intimidated. And, you do go to some breweries, not locally, but nationally, that that you get a little intimidated by the beer menu, and you get a little intimidated by, if you don't know what that certain hop is.
Sure.
So we really try to, be approachable, and Fred and his team have, made craft beer approachable to people. I mean, if you want the crazy stuff, Matt's brewing it.
Yeah.
But, if you want, there's also some gateway.
We'll find some for everybody.
So some gateway beers that, can help people get into craft slowly.
And it's fun to watch the progress of some people where they start coming, if they've come more than once and they try a lager,
Sure.
just a Craftsman lager, nice, easy drinking German lager. And 2 months later, you got them up on the White Oak Borderland IPA or something, they're something they never would have had before.
Right.
But also, we're always happy to give people a taste of something. If you're not sure, try it. I'll tell you all about it, but if you don't taste it, you're never going to be able to decide for yourself.
That's why I love giving someone a Borderland IPA when they say, I hate IPAs.
Yeah.
Well, they probably had 110 IBU,
Right.
West Coast IPA bomb that was, over the top. And
I hated IPAs for a while because my first one was a double IPA because I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And I hated them forever. I still don't know what I'm doing, but now I at least can taste some stuff.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting when you brought up the fact that you kind of tried to hire personality rather than experience, because I feel like that's not talked about enough. You can teach a lot of this stuff, not to like demean anything, but you can teach a lot of the service aspect. But having that personality to have people come in and talk to them and make them feel welcome and comfortable, that's something that you really can't teach.
Yes. And I come from a high volume bar background. I've been a bartender for 15, 16 years now. Worked downtown, worked on Chippewa, Allen. So it was a learning curve for me too, to hire the right people for the job. When I was just looking for people, it was like, how, are you fast? Do you do this? Do you do that? And to learn that, we can bring people in. Especially, we've started serving spirits more recently, but for 5 years we weren't.
local spirits.
Local spirits, yes. We have
Buffalo
a
spirits,
farm
yeah.
license. So that was definitely a big thing, was just saying like, all right, I can train these people all about the beer. We started doing beer huddles and Basically where we're educating them on how you describe it to the customer, what hops are in it, who you're going to sell this to. If they say, I like to drink such and such a thing, you can find something for them. And a lot of times that involves branching out a little bit. When people are like, I like light beer, I can sell them a Belgian-style wit beer, or I can sell them the Day Trekker Session IPA. Even though that's outside their realm of comfort, maybe it's something they haven't given a chance, to that, and they're willing to try it, and then we move on from there. But it's not always give them the same thing. I drink Bud Light. What are you going to give me? So sometimes I like to start there, but give them a few samples of something different and try to help them climb that hill of finding something new that they really enjoy.
Yeah, even that beer you're drinking, that sour. It's a great way to. We get people who say, I just drink white wine. Mm-hmm. Well, we got something you might actually like. And we can convert them with that style of beer.
So when you were home brewing, what was the beer that you kind of gravitated towards making? Was it anything?
Everybody in the late 80s, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, right?
Was that the thing?
Yeah, it was Sierra Nevada, and then there was a beer called Pete's Wicked Ale.
Pete's Wicked.
Am I dating myself, Matt?
They're both still out, so I mean, they are timeless at this point. The fact that they've been around for 30 years will surprise some people, I think.
Yeah, well, I spent a lot of time in the Pacific Northwest, and right then, between Anchor Steam and Pete's Wicked Ale and Sierra Nevada, all the beer was coming out of, kind of that Chico, Tahoe area. Mm-hmm. So that's where I fell in love with it. So
kind of talking about that and your influences, your tap room and like this area is it's pretty unique on the style of it. Where did you get those influences from? Were they from the Pacific Northwest?
Well, this room and these styles, I'm giving all the, it comes down to Matt and the brew team. And hopefully Matt agrees, I'm not a micromanager when it comes to what they brew. I am a hophead, so the only thing I push for is making sure we always have our flagship IPA, and then, we're dabbling now in some more doubles and some more New Englands. But when it comes to this room and the stuff we're doing with the barrel age program, I leave that to the experts.
As far as my influence, it's always kind of whatever I want to drink. It's comes from a very selfish place. Hate to say it, but it's things that I don't see, and I approach it. I always like to think there's two ways that most people I talk to approach the coming up with the recipe or what they want to do. Is it's kind of like the engineer or the chef. So you're either looking at it from a very technical aspect of like, I know this tastes like this, so I want these building blocks there. And me, I had a foundation as a I cook at home, smoke meats, cure meats, lot of cooking, and worked in restaurants for years. So I always kind of approach it like, all right, I want this flavor, so I know what I can build upon that. As years have gone on, we started off with some fairly assertive long-term sours. I was like into Duchess and some really great Belgian stuff, but the older I get, my gut can't take it. So it's either I'm having a sip of beer and popping a Tums, but kind of trying to tone that back a little bit and make it more approachable for everybody. Is that you've got the people out there who want to drink the more extreme, really intense sours, almost balsamic-y at times, and I don't mean that as a bad thing, but you want the beer to be approachable. And to the talk of gateway beer, that's kind of what I want to do. It's my wife started off, I use her as an example. She would drink, a lager and would never touch an IPA, and then maybe like a hyper fruited Goza. And then kind of over time, like she was my litmus test of like, here you go, like try this thing. Like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And then kind of like steer them in that direction. And to the point before of, wine drinkers, my brother hates beer, but he's a wine guy and a liquor guy. So if I can get them to like something, I'm like, all right, I know this is going to be approachable. And then you'll get the comments sometimes like, well, the beer drinkers aren't drinking it, but the wine drinkers are loving it right now. And I'm like, that's great. Like we're getting them in. We've got our hooks in them now.
And there's the adventure scale on like any of the sour cans. If you look on your cans, fellas, like, or your bottles, we put a little scale on the back of it that says like how advanced we think the flavor profile is. Like if you're just getting into sour, something might be easier than another. And flavor complexity or how funky it gets. So I kind of thought that was a cool idea that you guys did.
Thank you.
Good job. It's just like you look at it and you're like, I'm not ready for this one yet.
Well, it's nice to know what you're getting into, and I think there's a lot of apprehension in buying a $16 to $20 bottle. Sometimes you're like, well, if I'm not going to like it, I don't want to drink it. And
right, it's not cheap.
So letting people know what you're going to get into. So like before the the quick goes a type thing or the hyper fruited stuff, like you'll get people like, oh, I love sour beers, and you get like, do you like the really fruity sour beers, or do you like the long term stuff where you have, not to say it's more complex than the other one, but you have a lot of nuanced, winey type, earthy flavors that come out of the barrel aged stuff. So you want to let someone know what they're getting themselves into. Sure. This one I feel is a good kind of bridge gateway between the two. It's not too funky and weird, but it's yeah. So we're drinking the Tropic Plunder right now, which is our goes base that we would use for like one of our hyper fruited goses. But we barrel aged this one. There's no lactose in it. We barrel aged it for about a year, and then did a secondary fermentation with passion fruit and guava. So it gives that really nice tropical.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you're not micromanaging the team.
I hope not.
Regarding
No, you're good.
regarding the barrel program and things.
Yeah,
Can you guys touch on what that actually looks like? Like, what do those meetings entail? What makes up the team? Who are they? And then kind of touch on the entire program, because breweries don't have this, man. Like, this is so unique, and we see this all the time in distilleries, but coming to a separate building full of barrels, and you're just like, yeah, man, like, good juices in here. It's just like, what are you talking about? Like, can you touch on what we're actually surrounded by? Because this is fascinating from a brewery standpoint.
Definitely. So the wall to our left, your right over here, these are a blonde base of various years. So some of the barrels you see, like right there, Custer, that's letting us know what yeast is in that one. You'll see the House 4 there. That's the 4th generation of a blend of, like, we call it house yeast at this point. So we did a couple blends for Flanders Red a few years ago. Actually, I think pretty early on, maybe our second or third year, one of the first barrel projects we had done. And it was for a Flanders Red, which is, a traditional, as the name implies, it's a red beer. That is a much more assertive sour than a lot of people are kind of gravitating towards at this point in time. And I just kind of had the idea. I was like, well, I mean, blondes are hitting right now, so why don't we try putting a blonde base in here? And it comes out really nice and clean, compared to some of with the darker beer, the more, I don't want to say like acrid, but it can be a bit more assertive than you get out of like a blonde base. So all blonde base here. Behind you, you're going to see there's some Russian Imperials. We've got some brown ales. Like I'd say it's kind of like, not to say dirty beer, but our stuff with like lactobacillus and pediococcus and some funky stuff is going off over here. And then these are your like Russian Imperial Stout, like you're drinking, is on this side here. I think we have a couple Scotch ales going in here. Some other things that are come out kind of like cognac-like.
Sure.
So it's a combination of again, coming from a kind of a selfish place of, like, what do I want to drink right now? And talking with the team, like, what do we want to do? Because, you want to do something that you're not drinking all the time, but you want to do something you can, it's going to be approachable for somebody else, and you want to be selfish.
Sure.
Totally selfish, at least.
Are these all made on like experimental brewing, or is it what you're making normally and then you're just kind of saving 52 gallons for this?
We've done some of that before, but usually it's, I'll empty a barrel for, 15 to 20 barrels for a run, and then I'll fill them back up with something else. So like when I'm planning something out, like if it's a Russian Imperial or like a Scotch ale, we want to source barrels that are going to fit, the beer that we're doing. So we'll talk, we'll get, whiskey barrels or some Scotch barrels, or we've done some stuff in like port wine.
Did some rum.
Yeah, rum barrels, yeah. The more unique it is, the harder it is to get, so we got to plan really ahead for some of that stuff. And then throughout the years, as you're going through the barrels, they kind of become more neutral. So we actually do have some blondes and old whiskey barrels, because by like your second or third run, you're not really pulling whiskey out of it anymore, because whiskey hasn't been in there in, years.
Yeah.
So kind of, it's like building that foundation and then working up from there.
So this adventure scale, before we move on, I want to talk about this, because we literally just interviewed Clarksburg Cider yesterday, and they have their sweetness scale, and theirs is very scientific with sugars. Like they actually have a requirement from New York State of what matches what sweetness. Is this more perception, or does this follow some sort of scientific scale too?
It's more of personal perceptions.
Gotcha.
So like I was saying before, some of the ones can come out almost balsamic-y. So I would say like that would be like your 5. So like, and I'm going to drop Duchess again, but Duchess is a very assertive sour beer. And I would say that's at the top of the line. And then we put out a beer a couple of years ago called Sif and Stave, which like if I didn't tell you it was a barrel-aged long-term sour, you would have no idea. It was very clean, had like a kind of a lemon pez flavor to it. So something like that, or like this, we'll throw, lower down on the scale. I wish there was. I mean, once you've had some of our beers, we can kind of drop it more to you.
Sure.
But just letting you know that like it's not too extreme, so it's a good place for you to start.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We put out, well, the first ones we had him on was a series. I think there was it 4, I believe, in the series?
Yeah, the 4
And
bottles.
we had pretty much everything from like 1 through 5 in that series. So one of them was like a wild forge beer where we went out and we picked ingredients from around the area. And then we did a secondary fermentation on like wild blueberry, blackberry, sumac, bunch of other stuff. And that was because we picked up wild yeast with that as well. So that became a very assertive, like, intense beer. So that, fell at the,
Had the funk.
yeah, it had a funk.
I liked it a lot.
And the people who were into
It's
that
gone.
were like, yeah,
It's not
that one disappeared, flash in the pan. And then we had one that was done with golden berries, which are they're called ground cherry sometimes, or Cape Cod gooseberries. But it had a really nice like mango, pineapple vibe to it. So it was nice when we first dropped it. It was like, here's the scale. So you kind of had your idea, like, okay, each one of these beers is going to take me a step up in intensity.
Which, excuse me, you mentioned flash in the pan. So regarding someone's experience, how does that work with the kitchen? Because you guys have a stack. I mean, you have options for days. So do you do like pairings and things like that, where you work in conjunction with the kitchen to kind of pair certain release beers with what's going to be made so that someone can have like a full sit down experience?
Not as much of that, but I think that's, first of all, a really nice segue to, during the last few years, we actually turned our kitchen operations over to Fat Bob's BBQ. So they are our restaurant in residence. Great people, great food, and a great complement to beer, right? So it's a phenomenal partnership. We're in the beer business, and we think we're pretty good at that. They're in the food business. They're really good at that. And when we were doing our own food, I could have had a Michelin chef. We would have always been known as a brewery first. So bringing in Fat Bob's as our partner on the food, Fred will attest to this fact, is
It's
made our lives a lot easier.
It's a very sharp scale up in the numbers we're doing in food.
But on that note, we are chatting with them about that very thing, about doing some pairings, different sauces, different beers. So that's actually on the horizon, some discussions on what we can do more so with them on the culinary side.
And we did a one pairing last spring, I want to say.
I feel like we do
That
it
went
like
great.
every year. I feel like
Yeah.
we do it, at least when we've done it.
And I'd like to see more, but that's one of the most fun things about beer and food is putting them together and coming up with something that
Right.
really works well together. And so planning those kind of things is a fun part of my job, because what do? You sit down, you taste food, and you taste beer. So
Not a
it's
bad
like
combo.
it's not a bad part of the job.
I think a lot of it too, like being very blunt and very transparent, is when if you tell somebody like, oh, where do you live? Like, I live in East Aurora. It's got this different mystique to it where people understand, like, oh, like you live in East Aurora. Got it. Like the locals understand what that means. So when you have that perfect blend, which is East Aurora, of like blue collar, white collar, and like old generational wealth, but then also just like a down and dirty, respective, like mystique about you. It's just like having those options. That's what's so great about other places on the strip, because you can go into 42 North and have a super great beer, super good environment, awesome food, and then leave and everything's peachy. You can also go to Gastro down the street, literally walking distance, and have a totally different vibe.
Right.
And it goes all the way down the road.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different landmarks that are on Main Street in East Aurora that it's like you can't even keep up.
Yeah.
The fact that you guys are tapping into that is one, genius, but also super exciting, because that's not a thing yet. And it elevates 42 North into a totally different stratosphere of like, hey, like we're going to give you a really good food option with barbecue, but we're also going to give you a really good beer option. Let's combine them, and you can sleep here.
Yeah.
Like that is so unique that it's.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole different league of
Yeah.
business model.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, and I'll give you guys a scoop. Actually, Matt will give you a scoop, is what we've been doing, and now we're planning with our community collabs and brewing small batch with local businesses.
Yes,
so
let's
go. Don't we have a couple on the horizon?
So we just had one come out. We do this every year, but Masterson's Nursery down the road, they have
Apiary.
Apiary?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. 'Cause I was going to say bee farm. Anyone didn't know like me, a bee farm. But so they have bees. So they have a honey festival every year. So we've been making like an English style braggot for them for the last few years. We have it on tap here. We do a sampling over there when they do the festival. Last year we decided to expand it, do more than one beer. So we did a saison last year. What I referred to as like a 10.5%, I called under the table saison. That one was really nice. We do cool shipping beers sometimes. So we actually, in the winter, we will take wort, we'll put it in a vessel and leave it outside overnight. So it's inoculated by the microbes in the air. So the wild yeast, you're tasting the area. We cultured a yeast from that, which had a really nice Belgian kind of character to it, a little spice, a little phenolic, but not overbearing. And we did a dual fermentation where we gave that a few days with the local yeast and then hit it with a saison yeast. Ended up being, like I said, 10.5% under the table. Didn't taste like it. It was delicious, but very dangerous. So this year I made a over the table saison, so a 4%er. So that was the Masterson, which both of those are on tap right now. So there's an English braggot and a honey saison. Coming up, we have a collab we did with Lucky Day for our anniversary. So we're doing just a true to form goza, but then we're going to turn that goza into a cocktail. So you can either get the straight goza, you can get the goza as the cocktail, and then we also got a series of 7 different syrups that you can add to. It's kind of a European thing. So you could, you want it to be raspberry this time, we'll do a shot of raspberry in there and you get the goza.
And we're chatting with the new hot spot in town, Rosie's Ice Cream.
Yes.
Nice.
About doing something with those guys. Blue Eyed Baker, we've done something with.
Yeah, we did a really hot raspberry macaroon goza with them, and that sold out in like a day, I think. Yeah. that was really, really quick. That was very popular.
Do you just reach out to these businesses and say you want to collab on this?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's easy as
And
that.
a lot of them are, East Aurora is a small town, so, we do, a lot of them are friends in one way, shape, or form. I think we might even be doing something with the barber shop.
Yeah, don't say which one because both have approached us.
Okay. But to your point, that's the cool thing about East Aurora is there's so many creative businesses, great, cool vibe with different businesses. So for us to be able to collaborate with them and work with them, that's what really makes East Aurora a pretty special place to do business.
I feel like 42 North is on that level of a few other breweries that you guys have kind of like a cult following. And when did you realize or find out that that's kind of the case? Because there's different levels of breweries, and you
When
guys
a
are
guy
up
walked
there.
into the brewery with a 42 North tattoo,
Really?
yeah.
And he didn't work here?
That wasn't me.
That was
guys.
early.
That was early.
Wasn't me.
It was early. He had one of our cans on his
growler
calf.
can. Yeah, the blank growler can.
And I felt bad when we updated our cans because his tattoo was out of date.
No, that dates him. That means he's an OG.
Yeah.
Well, we do events. We have what we call our tap trucker, going out. So when you start realizing, you're like, I saw that guy last time. I saw this guy last time. And then you realize you've been at every single one of these events. And they're like, yeah, we're following you guys. Like, it's like the dead. We're going from place to place. When you guys show up someplace, we know it's going to be a good time. So we'll come out.
Yeah, and I think to your point, the other thing about East Aurora is we're a gateway to outdoor sports.
No doubt.
So Hunters Creek, Spraguebrook, Knox, obviously we do a lot of work in Ellicottville, Spraguebrook. So we've really gone out of our way to work with the mountain bike community, the skiers, the hikers. We do a great charity bike ride from here to Ellicottville. So
John actually did that himself.
yeah, we raised $50,000 for the Rails to Trail program.
That's great.
So part of that cult following are these active adventure seeker people. That's our brand. Not that you have to ride 50 miles to drink our beer, but there's a lot of people who, like that camaraderie of being outdoors, hiking, biking, that are part of our tribe for sure.
Which is huge too, because you also can tap into the hunting community, which is obviously massive with Franklinville, Holland, and then you have Windy City Brew down the street. Mm-hmm. So what's nice is like if somebody's working their way, they can bar hop and they can touch Windy City, they can come here, and then they're like, all right, now I'm going to go home.
Right.
Because after they leave 42 North, after both of you got some high percentage beers flowing.
Yeah.
So these people are like, all right, now I got to cut it off.
Well, we love
But again,
this.
they can stay here.
Yeah, what I love is around Christmas, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, you'll see 8 cars parked in front of the brewery, and all 8 have a Christmas tree on top of the car. Because, to your point, they've got their Christmas tree maybe out in Strikersville, and they're swinging back this way for a beer.
I mean, yeah, exactly. When you're done cutting down a tree, you're gonna want a beer. I mean, it's natural as a man. Like that's a natural progression of the day.
Gives Dad an excuse to go to the brewery, right?
What made you come up with the name 42 North? Obviously, we're 42 parallel.
Yeah, and that was it. I think I just wanted something that was authentic and wasn't too. Again, for me, beer is all about a sense of place. It's where are we and 42nd parallel. First of all, no one else trademarked it, so that's the first reason.
Sure.
Because it's really hard to find anything that you can own. And then 42 North, 42nd parallel. I'm a history buff, so the history of the people and the places from here throughout the Finger Lakes is cool.
Sure.
So it gave us a sense of place. We had 5 or 6 options, but no regrets with the name.
What were the other options? Do you want to say?
We had Treaty Saison to start, Borderland, the oatmeal cookie. We had, I believe it was called Red Jacket, Red Ale.
Well, do you mean for names for the business or the?
Yeah, the business.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
No,
going into the 5 beers we had to start.
No, but Treaty was one of them.
Yes.
Treaty Brewing Company was one of them. There was also, we did history of the property. It used to be an old kind of a coal yard.
Oh, okay.
Where our building is back in mid 1800s.
Sure.
So one was Coal Yard Brewing Company.
Oh, that'd be cool.
If there's any other, prospective brewery owners that are looking for name options, I can sell them one that we can use.
You already trademarked it, but you'll sell it.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
The font for 42 North, does that meet, is there like an East Aurora regulation or something like that, or no?
As far as
like the font style for
we did not, it was good. We did not go with the Roycroft font style.
So you had an option. That's good.
Oh, absolutely.
That's cool.
We did not go there because, honestly, we're not trying to be the brewery that's, next to the Roycroft. We're trying to build our own brand. And East Aurora has Fisher Price. East Aurora has the Bar Bill. East Aurora has the Roycroft. East Aurora has, a lot of cool companies and brands. So.
Yeah, that sign guy that makes signs like all 4D and 3D.
He made our sign. I was
going to ask if
Visual Impacts.
Visual Impacts.
Yeah, that guy's a savage.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so he created our sign. Great company.
I really want to talk to him. I'm serious.
Yeah, he does some cool stuff.
We can introduce you.
So,
please.
So for us, it was we wanted to create our own brand, our own identity, and we didn't want to just draft off. I think it would have been easy and to just be the East Aurora Brewing Company and do all of our fonts in Roycroft.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be something we could own.
Sure. Did you start canning right away, or did you wait a little bit?
We started canning pretty much end of 2019. I think October of 2019 is when our canning line arrived. So pretty much it was either right before or right after the anniversary. Yeah, we were doing mobile canning for a couple years before, which was great to get your name out there, but you're pretty much breaking even if you're lucky.
Sure. But now you're basically everywhere, right? Like all the local brewery or
we're distributed from Chautauqua County to Binghamton.
Wow.
All along the 42nd parallel, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a great distributor network. I think our brand plays well in the Finger Lakes. Again, active, outdoorsy, hiking, biking, skiing, fishing. So the brand plays pretty well in the Finger Lakes and in Chautauqua and definitely in Ellicottville. We have a great following down there.
Where do you guys source, if you can talk about it, where do you source your materials and things like that? Like, is there a massive collaboration push to work with local farmers to try to get everything you need from hops and things like that? Like, how does that look like?
Little bit of everything. We're a farm brewery. We have a co-brewery license. I'd say probably 95% of what we get is not local, like New York State malts. So we get a lot of British malts, some German malts. We do some New York State beers. Our Day Trekker IPA is I think it's at this point like 70% New York State hops. So we work. I'd say more with the hop aspect of New York State. We will do, local beers like that. It's more a matter of we try to use the right malt for the right beer kind of a thing. So like if we're making a German beer, we want to have German malt and stay as true to form. But it's what's great now is it's coming on the forefront. Kind of we're starting off right now is there's American maltsters who are growing or importing European malts and then using those techniques that they're using over there. So you can get your German malt, swish swish quote quote from a American maltster now. So those are some things. I actually have a couple bags I just got from our main distributor to try to play that out. Just it's nice when you can support local or at least U.S. stuff.
Yeah.
And with the way some things in the world are going, who knows what's going to happen on the forefront? So why not try to kind of close that loop as much as we possibly can?
Sure. So clearly everything, like all of us basically have a different beer. Your lineup is extremely extensive. I mean, you'll basically brew anything that you're interested in. What are the staples? Like, do you have 5 or 6 like main staples that are always here that won't change?
We'll always have our Borderland IPA. Day Trekker is a session IPA. We have our Wallonia Wit, which comes in 2 forms. In the summertime, it shifts over to a pineapple wit. The rest of the year, it is available as just a regular Belgian style wit. The Craftsman, which John had referenced, which is a Vienna type lager. Say similar to kind of like a Yingling type, a little more malty. We have a Illumination Pilsner. So I guess I'd say
And the porter, a silent porter.
a silent porter too. So I guess we have anywhere from 6 to 8-ish
Core beers.
kind of core beers that kind of pop in and out, and then seasonals in there. But those beers are pretty reliably always on. The first 4 most definitely anytime you come here.
And do you have any like brewery exclusive where you have to only get here?
So the one that you and I are drinking, the sours, you might find maybe in a bottle shop obscurely. Sometimes guys will just, if we don't sell it out, they'll come and buy it retail. so they're like, well, we want to have this here, but you guys don't distro it, so they'll come here and they'll buy themselves a case and then sell it off in their shop. So the barrel aged stuff is mostly available just in house.
Some pilot batches.
Pilot batches. So we'll do one-offs with that stuff, and trying to think what else. We have a couple other things that'll pop up on there.
So you do pilot batches?
Yeah, we'll do pilot batches. Whether we're testing out a new, crazy big plan we want to do one day that's off the wall, so you want to make sure you got it all dialed
Yeah,
in.
right.
We'll do that, or sometimes you just want to do something fun for a small thing, like let's see how this goes,
Sure.
or
How big is your pilot batch and how big is your regular?
we have a 2-barrel pilot batch system, so yields about, depending upon the beer, 1.5 or 3.5 half kegs, maybe more if it's a something not so hoppy where you use a lot of loss there. And then our full system is 20 barrels. So it's from 60 gallons to 600 gallons. And then for fermenter space, we have 6 20-barrel fermenters. We have 115, 130 barrel, and then 145 barrel.
Okay.
And hopefully more to come.
Yeah, and more on the way.
Sure, but listen, who the hell's helping to clean that? Dude, that's a massive system.
I have a great team of guys who are helping.
How many people compose of this team? Like Philip Rivers has 11 kids, but like, my God.
Currently, I'll say about 2.5.
Yeah, Matt will say not enough.
Yes.
Understood.
We are at a low point in our staffing right now.
We could
use. So if anybody's out there looking,
Yep.
submit a resume to 14north.com.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Might be here on a Saturday, just helping you scrub some floors.
You'll be by yourself on a Saturday.
But to that point, the guys.
That's one good thing. We're a Monday through Friday operation for now.
The team we do have, they multitask, they brew, they clean, they can. It's all hands on deck. So
yeah, the guys, I like to say we do a dance. So we're all comfortable in what we can do. So you can start one project and kind of you're running circles. I mean, there's days where I'll put 10, 15 miles on myself in the brewery, which is wild over the course of a 400 square foot area.
yeah.
So are you guys kind of at your limit for like where you got to think to upgrade and stuff, or no?
Oh, we're pressing up against, and Matt and I had this conversation last week. We're pressing up against with the current equipment on what we can do for next year, because we do have some somewhat aggressive plans. But the good news is, our facility isn't limited.
Sure.
We have room to add fermenters.
Yeah, John had the foresight to, when they were piping in all their glycol, which helps chill the tanks, we have enough room right now for another 4 to 5 tanks, depending upon how we place those.
Yeah, so we can grow here. Our strategy is much more grow organically. We could brew a ton more of beer, and just push it out there, but we're rather just make sure that it's pulled through, and then every time someone picks up one of our beers, it's with it's been put in a can within 30 days.
Yeah, which is awesome.
So it's super fresh.
I mean, we were talking about the village, but just getting water lines and everything that you need from a facility standpoint here had to be a bear.
No, we have great water lines. We have really, really fast water here.
And that was
I think you guys paid
4
4-inch like
That was the $75,000 water line.
It's ridiculous.
But yeah, it's those things you don't know, right? When you start this off, it's like, so yeah, we closing down the street and dropping in the new water line, and that's what I think of. Folks opening a brewery. It's like those are things you don't think of that are critical.
I can get
Where's your water from? How much are you getting in?
30 to 45 gallons a minute if I need it, which is insane.
And it's interesting too because you'll see it on paper. You're just like, oh, it's 4-inch line. Like, all right, whatever. And then you see it actually installed, and you're like, hold on, like you have to blow up the street. Like, what are you talking about? And you're like, well, yeah, dude. Like, where'd you think this was coming from? Like, 4-inch on paper is way different in reality.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
No one's flushing a toilet. You're losing water pressure. So.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
I think we had a 3/4-inch water line in the Legacy building, and
3/4 inch.
yeah,
It's worth the upgrade.
But again, because we're lucky enough to own the building, that's an investment that we were prepared to make. If you're renting a building, that's going to be who's paying for that? The tenant, the landlord, because that's one of those jump balls.
So next plans or whatever, is the next plan to kind of upgrade the facilities and then increase distro, or like what is your future plans at the place if you can get into it?
Fred, what's our plan?
It's above my pay grade. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it.
He's like, you're sitting next to me, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Fred hasn't talked in a while, so yeah.
I would love to see more fermenters in the tap room. I would love to, what I would love someday, and this is just my wish list, but more taps in the tap room, more lines, so I can have 20 different beers on all the time. I love the idea of variety, but that's just a me wish. I love when somebody comes in. We do, like you were talking about earlier. We have a great selection. We have, you can come in any time, and there's. There are 2 or 3 lagers on. We have 4 IPAs on. We got 3 or 4 dark beers. We're not just 10 IPAs and a lager and a dark beer. There's something from everywhere, and I like to keep that going. I love our experimental beers. I think most of anything. I love drinking things like Tropic Plunder. I love trying we have the Endeavor series that was rum barrel aged Baltic porter. I love seeing all this crazy stuff come out of there. But you gotta sell a bunch in order to make more. Yeah.
So there are plans to grow, but organically, slow. We're probably the more the tortoise versus the hare strategy. But personally, I'm looking for more ways to get our experience and our beer directly in front of customers. So we've been super aggressive on creating events. I mean, we're taking our tap tracker to Watkins Glen, Skinny Atlas, to get our brand, Ellicottville, our brand out there. So, there may be, future 42 North tap rooms out there somewhere on the 42nd parallel where we can replicate this experience, and Fred can, coach those new employees for front of house, and we can deliver Matt's beer. So, we're snooping around at, how do we take this, replicate this here in other places where we can, fans can, or beer customers can experience us firsthand. So that's something we're looking into.
Yeah. Do you guys ever pay attention to like Untapped ratings at all when you're making beer or no? It's always interesting to talk to people because some people do, some people don't.
Yes and no. People will always complain if they have a voice to complain, which is unfortunate. I'm much more of the opinion you should rise things up. Like I'll sit there when I'm having some beers and I'm bored, and I'll just 5-star everything I possibly can think about on tap, just because, like, to put it politely, fuck your algorithm and fuck what you guys are doing to the beer industry. It's unfortunate because you want to take it to heart. I mean, you do and you don't. You want to take feedback, but when feedback's just like, I don't drink porters. This porter sucks. 1 star. Like, it's okay. Well, that's obviously not for you. I don't drink gin, but I'm not out there rating gin. So like, I'm like, this gin sucks. Well, I hate gin, so it must be good. Like, so I mean, if I appreciate feedback when it's constructive. Yeah. When it's constructive, when you've got something to say, where like, this is a little bit too bitter for me, or there was this, but just to be like, this sucks, blah, blah, blah. And then you look at their thing and it's like, I drink Jenny Cream Ale all day and every IPA I poop on. Like, cool, bro. Like, glad you feel better for lording that over somebody. But like, so I guess yes and no. I mean, it sucks when you pour your heart into something to see someone be like,
this thing. Take it personal.
I think it's a tainted system in general.
Well, you think too is like, when you'll see like, I like it for like, if you see a lot of bad reviews coming out of a specific place and you're like, okay, what's going on over here? Like, why are people drinking our beer in house or over here and they like it? But then like, are their draft lines dirty? Is it the clientele at this place? Are we barking up the wrong tree with this? Because I mean, every place does have its own kind of culture and clientele. So I try not to get hurt by it, but I try to think constructively, like, okay, why is it this? And I sometimes will, against my better judgment, like, read the comments.
Yeah, but there's some data there that's valuable. I mean, I used Untappd now and then, just if I'm tasting somebody's beer that I really like, I want a place to keep it in my notes. So,
have it on notes.
Drink the beer first and then look at Untappd. Don't sorry to pop in your mic, but don't let them tell you what to think. And I think that's one of the things that you do get a lot of, because I mean, we've all had a beer where it's like, this beer is 4.5 or 5 stars, and you're like, really? Like this?
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
Or it starts a bandwagon where we've all seen hype and craze around certain beers where people have a line out their door for their beer. And people, you could make something that tastes exactly the same. I'm not saying that's what we're trying to do here, but even if you did, people would say, well, it's not this, so it's garbage. People build so much hype over a brand on these social media platforms that they turn into this elevated, they can do nothing wrong. Yeah. Like they'll pull out some weird beer and something I would never want to drink, but at the same time, everybody's jumps on it, and...
Yeah, it's like that Sierra Nevada beer that we were talking about. I don't know what's going on with all that. Apparently, that was a big craze back in the 80s.
Exactly. Look out.
It was good in the 90s,
that craft thing's never going to take off. Nobody's going to drink these hoppy beers. What are they thinking?
Well, I mean, to be fair, the craft industry, I think, kind of shot itself in the foot from straight out the gate, because you had that, like, a bitter beer arms race. So you alienated such a large subject of people. I mean, think about the ads back when we were younger. It was all like, bitter beer face, and like that's a Sam Adams. Like, that's hardly something.
Well, it was an IBU race.
That's it. Like, first off, you can't taste anything over, I think it's like 75 IBUs. You physically can't distinguish that. So they're like, this is 1,000 IBU beer. It's like, cool. Like,
that was like 2010.
Yeah.
The peak.
You contract crazy hops now because of it. So
Green Flash was the one leading that charge, and by the way, they're really not in business anymore.
What was the? Was it like War? What was the extract you got? People used to use
Warrior extract.
Warrior extract.
Yes, Warrior hop extract.
I took. So when they were playing around with double IPAs back, this is 6-7 years ago, and they were making a double, I just happened to stick my pinky in a big container of Warrior extract and decided to taste it, and I couldn't taste anything for the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what they were trying to go for with the. That arms race you guys were talking about. That was.
It's interesting. I'm going to paraphrase the famous quote, but it's like you're trying to judge a dog's ability to climb a tree, like it's not its specialty. And you guys narrowed down that obviously that's not the exact quote, so don't freak out, because I know we're going to get 40 comments about, okay, the actual comment is from Mark Twain, like whatever. But it's just nice that you guys focus in on what you're actually like. 1, passionate about, 2, good at, and then 3, what you can duplicate. Because at the end of the day, that's what actually matters. Yep. So you hammered experience, good beers, and the overall like growth mindset of slow, smooth is fast, and we'll just do it organically. We'll gain a cult following, and now we have what we have, to the extent where, like, I was almost nervous when we pulled up, and I'm like, oh God, they're open. Like, where are we going to go? And you're like, dude, we have so many different options. You're like, what do you mean we have options? Like, we're not used to that. So it's really cool that you guys are in this spot. But I really just wanted to, like, thank you guys, because this is like incredible. It's 42 North has been like this weird recommendation for us from our audience. We're like, you guys, you got to have him on. You got to have him on. It's like, okay, we're trying. Like,
Thanks, audience.
Yeah, exactly. But like at the same time, you guys are super busy. Like you have so much happening. But first of all, thank you. And secondly, just like how can people find you and where can people come see you? Like, what are your hours?
It's the only day we're closed is Monday, so that's when Matt's team can clean all the 20 barrel fermenters.
That's how they get it.
Yeah, weekdays 4 to 11, weekends, noon till
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
We open Friday at 2 to midnight.
Yeah.
Saturday noon to midnight. Sunday noon to 8.
Check us out. For those of you who are still into social media, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Our website, we do a
Instagram.
pretty good job of keeping that updated. And we'd love for anybody to come in and say hello and try a beer and meet the team. We're still a piece of clay. We don't have all the answers, but the good news is 7 years in, we've got our feet underneath us, but we are not done innovating. We're not done growing by any means.
Yeah. So excited to continue watching you guys grow because you have the room, you have the mindset, you have everything to do it, and it's going to be awesome. So
Thank you.
Thanks guys so much. Anything else that you want to add before we close out?
No, when you guys take that equipment down, we're going to go have another beer.
Love that. Thank you so much.
When's this coming out? Just out of curiosity.
I don't know.
2, 3 weeks?
Yeah, 2,
3 weeks on a Friday.
Because we could talk to Yodler if we want to talk about anything that's coming out.
I'll give you the exact date right now.
Oh, so if we want to leave it evergreen, we can leave it evergreen.
Yeah, we'll leave it evergreen.
Okay.
November 4th.
Okay. Yeah, we'll leave it evergreen. Always new beers coming out.
Always new beers. Well, thank you guys so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Go
guys.
check them out. They have amazing beers, amazing atmosphere. You can't go wrong. So thanks so much.
Cheers, boys. Thanks for coming our way.
Thanks, guys.